Welcome back, babes. Honestly, we fucking love you for being here. And, babes, if this is your first time being here, go ahead and subscribe because, babes, this is your safe space.
It is literally the only safe space left.
Yeah.
So just, close the blinds, mute your group chats, and completely abandon your real-world responsibilities. Because the amount of absolute sociological wreckage we have to unpack today is staggering. I am physically vibrating.
I am already sweating. And honestly, it is not just because the weather in the city is heating up, which we need to talk about that. The concrete is starting to bake. The humidity is creeping in. And low-key, we literally just got back from Salem like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Weeks?
14 business days.
Yeah.
Barely enough time for the credit card charge from that completely overpriced witch-themed bed and breakfast to clear.
Literally. But
Yeah.
babes, we're already ready for another weekend vacation. I woke up this morning, looked at my ceiling and thought, I cannot be here. I must flee. I am looking at train schedules. I am staring at boutique hotel websites. I am spiraling. How are we so aggressively addicted to weekend trips?
It is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
We are never fully rested in the city. It is physiologically impossible to achieve REM sleep when you know your rent is due and there are, sirens going off at 3 in the morning.
Oh, my God, yes.
Plus, we are exhausted dentists. We spend 40 hours a week staring into the cavernous, plaque-filled mounds of the general public, dealing with saliva and dental drills, and then we walk out onto the street pretending we live this elite European life of leisure. It's a massive disconnect. We require soft escape energy every 10 business days, or our nervous systems will completely short-circuit.
We act like luxury travel influencers, and it's so embarrassing, but so real. We are looking at molars and cavities all day, wearing scrubs that smell like sterile wipes, and then Friday hits, and suddenly I need to be, draped in silk on a coastal getaway holding a spritz.
Right.
So we are low-key thinking we need to plan a weekend trip to Rhode Island soon. Because, babes, it's water, and water attracts boats, and boats attract yacht daddies. And, babes, you already know what that means.
Money. Just unfathomable generational wealth.
Money. I am already having delusional yacht daddy spotting fantasies. I don't even know anything about boats, but I would absolutely act like Rhode Island is suddenly Monaco.
Oh, completely.
We are going to march into Newport, pretending we are just one slightly flirtatious brunch away from being in a different tax bracket.
Oh, I have the entire choreography mapped out. We're going to strategize these highly manicured, quote-unquote, accidental beach walks right past the private docks. We are going to perfect the art of looking completely uninterested while a billionaire steps off a catamaran.
Yes.
Just oh, I'm so sorry. Did a perfectly breezy linen cover-up just brush against the mahogany railing of your vessel? How clumsy of me. I was just so lost in my copy of Joan Didion. I would fake being so remarkably calm.
Wait, I'm crying.
Inside, my heart rate would be at 180, and I'd be mentally calculating their stock portfolio, but outside, I'm just a serene coastal entity looking at seagulls.
I am mentally packing my bags for this right now. I am packing imaginary linen outfits. I do not currently own linen pants, linen wrinkles if you even look at it. But in my mind, I have a capsule wardrobe of beige, flowing linen.
And I am actively building a fake investment portfolio in my head so I can hold a conversation with them over a martini. They ask me how I'm doing, and I just sigh and say, oh, the market. Tragic today, darling. Simply tragic.
You are so sick. We are so sick. And yes, babes, for anyone watching the video version or just listening to the audio, we are absolutely drinking Palomas right now. We had to.
We physically could not record this without them. It is the official beverage of the delusion we are currently manifesting.
They just set the perfect mood. Tell me why a Paloma makes me feel so fundamentally expensive. It's just tequila and juice, but it feels like wealth.
Well, it is the citrus hierarchy. Grapefruit is simply the most elevated fruit.
Wait, that is so true.
It is inherently intimidating. It's bitter. It requires an acquired taste. It's not a basic people-pleasing lime or a sugary strawberry. A grapefruit implies you have a palate. It says, I have a matching 401k and a nighttime skincare routine that costs more than your monthly car payment. One sip, and it chemically alters our DNA. We instantly morph into untouchable city women.
Literally. I take one sip of this pink drink, and suddenly I am acting like I live in a glass-walled rooftop penthouse in Tribeca, and not a fourth-floor walk-up where I can clearly hear my neighbor watching Jeopardy every night at 7. It is pure, concentrated, delusional confidence in a glass.
And speaking of pure, concentrated delusion, we have to address the elephant in the room. The spiral.
Okay, babes, I have to expose the truth. I have to put this out to the universe because I cannot carry this secret alone. My absolute best friend sitting across from me is currently going through a spiral. a massive identity-altering quarter-life crisis spiral. And considering law school,
I am. I am actively looking at LSAT prep courses.
law school. And Biggs, I need everyone listening to remember, both of us are already dentists. We have doctorates. We spent years in medical libraries crying over anatomy textbooks.
I just feel like I need more intellectual chaos in my life.
Yeah.
Is it a crime to want to argue for a living instead of just scraping tartar off teeth?
Yes.
Dentistry is so finite. There's a cavity, you fill it. I want moral ambiguity. I want high-stakes drama.
It is completely unnecessary career reinvention energy. It is giving Elle Woods if Elle Woods already had a thriving medical practice and just got bored. We are sitting here pretending we would survive another 3-year degree. We barely survived the first one. We lived on iced coffee and panic attacks for 4 years.
But imagine the absolute fantasy of it. The aesthetic reality of becoming powerful, untouchable, wealthy lawyers. We would march into a Manhattan courtroom in tailored designer suits, completely unbothered, carrying briefcases that hold nothing but lip gloss and subpoenas. And obviously, we would only take celebrity gossip cases. Nothing boring like corporate tax law.
Only pop culture litigation. Like, Your Honor, my client did not leave that shady comment on Instagram from her burner account. It was her rogue assistant, and we have the IP addresses to prove it. We would be unhinged courtroom icons.
If we went back to school, babes, we are not coming out normal. We are coming out rich, not dentist rich. Dentist rich is just like I can afford a nice Volvo and a kitchen island. I'm talking about real rich, black car service, private elevator rich.
Defending reality stars for fun. Getting access to sealed gossip files and reading discovery documents over brunch, we would turn the entire American legal system into a massive networking scheme.
We would be the most toxic, terrifying attorneys in the tri-state area.
Okay, babes, we are spiraling so hard right now, but we need to get into the episode because honestly, if we are high-powered gossip attorneys, the absolute train wrecks living on in the city would be our pro bono passion project.
Absolutely.
The legal, financial, and emotional wreckage happening in episode 2 requires immediate intervention.
We need to start with the darkest, most claustrophobic timeline. The complete collapse of Kyle and Amanda. We are officially in the trial separation era, and the psychology of how they are both handling it is fascinating.
It is emotionally devastating to watch. Amanda is officially packing up her things and moving out for a month. And, babes, the contrast between the two of them in this scene is staggering.
It really is.
Amanda is sitting on the floor, packing her shoes, and she looks up and says she feels lighter. She explicitly calls the separation a month-long vacation. She's treating the dissolution of her marriage like she is going on an all-inclusive wellness retreat in Tulum.
Right.
Meanwhile, Kyle is a shell of a human being. He is completely devastated. He is on the phone telling his mother that his marriage is ending, and he looks like he hasn't slept in a week.
Kyle is visibly, cellularly spiraling. He is defeated. He is miserable. And Amanda's practically skipping out the door to find herself. But we cannot just look at the emotional exit. We have to look at the physical reality of what she's leaving behind. Because the internet did not miss this, and we cannot ignore it. We have to talk about the hoarder apartment.
The filth. I am still recovering from the wide-angle shots of that apartment.
It is a physical manifestation of a failing relationship. There are 30 boxes just sitting there. 30. Piles of clothes covering every conceivable flat surface. And the most unhinged, deeply disturbing detail of all, there is an entire second bathroom where the shower is completely unusable because it is filled to the ceiling with Amanda's junk.
I know.
When a couple starts hoarding in their shared space, it is a literal physical barricade they are building between each other.
Yeah.
Someone on Reddit, I think the user was PureP743, made the most astute observation. They said, Kyle must be so happy not to live in filth anymore. And looking at that shower, they are objectively correct.
I was crying reading that thread. She is leaving this chaotic, suffocating horde behind for him to deal with. It's like she emotionally checked out of the marriage years ago, and her physical belongings just expanded to fill the void. But wait, we have to talk about the most controversial part of this move, the financial audit. The back rent.
Oh, this is the most fascinating power play of the entire episode. Peak Kyle.
Kyle charged Amanda back rent for the apartment she is leaving. Okay, you have to explain your stance on this because my jaw hit the floor. Is this petty king energy or is this just financially cruel and abusive?
I will defend this to the ends of the earth. It is absolute petty king energy, and I am obsessed with the boundary setting of it all. Molly Cooke on the Bravo subreddit called him a petty king, and she is absolutely right. Think about the mechanics here.
Okay, lay it out.
If you are going to look your husband of 10 years in the eye, tell him you are going on a month-long vacation from your marital vows, leave him living in an apartment that looks like a recycling center, and take your piece with you. Yes, he's going to audit you. He is going to run the spreadsheets.
I have to push back on this. I completely disagree. You cannot charge your wife of a decade back rent. That is so transactional and cold. It just proves that he views their marriage as a business arrangement. He is punishing her financially because he cannot control her emotionally anymore. It is a terrifying reaction.
But look at what prompted the reaction.
Yep.
She weaponized time against him. Amanda literally looks at him and says, "You wasted 10 years of my life." That is the most brutal thing you can say to a partner. And the Snark squad on Reddit absolutely tore her apart for that specific line. Meow, 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 328 nailed it, they said. Amanda saying Kyle wasted 10 years of her life, but she stayed for 10 years. All. She cannot play the victim of stolen time.
Okay, I will give you that. Sunk cost fallacy is real. She chose to stay. She liked the checks. She liked the platform. She liked being part of the power couple. You don't get to willingly stay for a decade, reap all the social and financial benefits of the reality TV ecosystem, and then act like you were held hostage in a messy apartment against your will.
Exactly. She wasted her own time. And the internal guilt she feels about that is manifesting physically. Which brings us to the most tragic visual of the episode, the bangs.
Oh my God, the crisis bangs.
The bangs are a screaming neon cry for help. Vodka Sauce Pizza on Reddit said, Amanda's bangs are a cry for help, and it is a universally understood feminine truth. When a woman stands in front of a mirror and cuts those specific, chaotic, stringy, unblended bangs, her internal world is in absolute shambles.
Literally.
It is the international symbol for, I have lost control of my life, so I will control this 2-inch section of hair on my forehead.
It really is. It's crisis hair. It's like she wanted a completely different edit this season. She wanted to walk in looking like the triumphant, liberated woman leaving her stressful, workaholic husband behind. She wanted that getting her groove back narrative. But instead, because of the hoarding and the hair, she just looks deeply lost and overwhelmed.
Yeah, completely.
And Kyle completely shut down her attempts to twist the perception. She tried to produce the scene. She said, "It feels like you're more excited about me leaving than I am," trying to paint him as the bad guy pushing her out. But Kyle, even while pouring his heart out and crying, caught the trap. He didn't leave room for the bad edit. He made it very clear he was heartbroken, which has totally derailed her narrative.
It is brilliant defensive reality TV playing by Kyle. But speaking of bad edits and speaking of the physical manifestation of emotional chaos through cardboard boxes, Amanda was not the only one weaponizing moving supplies this week. Can we please talk about Whitney and Kenny?
Babes, I am screaming about Whitney. This is the definition of visual delusion. She is officially moving from out of state into Kenny's New York City apartment. And how does she arrive? With 30 boxes, 30 massive boxes. And she immediately walks into his space and demands to turn his entire second bedroom into a closet because she is, and I quote, not an outfit repeater.
I need to analytically break down the absolute audacity of this scenario. Let's talk about the economics of space in Manhattan. You are moving into prime, high-demand New York City real estate. Space is not just a luxury. Space is literal gold. It is a blood sport to find a second bedroom. And you want to commandeer a room that could easily be rented out for $3,000 a month just to house your fast fashion addiction.
Because it's literally all from Shein. She's acting like she is Carrie Bradshaw stepping into the Vogue closet, but it's all cheap, highly flammable polyester, the absolute shade of it all. You are clogging up the environment, the landfills, and this man's expensive apartment with fast fashion simply because you refuse to repeat an outfit. Rent your clothes. Use Newly. Be sustainable. Be chic.
It is the antithesis of chic. It screams insecurity. The sheer volume of cheap clothing is a protective armor because she feels completely out of her depth in this city and in this friend group. And that insecurity is deeply mirrored in her partner, which brings us to Kenny.
Oh, Kenny. I have never seen a man crumble so quickly. He is furious, absolutely livid, because Lindsay grilled him at the Welcome to New York party about Whitney moving all the way to the city without an engagement ring.
Which, let's be abundantly clear, is a completely valid and standard question.
It is a completely normal question to ask someone on a reality TV show.
Yeah.
That is the premise of the genre. You are moving your girlfriend across the entire country. She is filling every square inch of your apartment with Shein boxes, uprooting her life, and you aren't engaged. Lindsay is just acting as the audience surrogate. She is asking what every single person watching is screaming at the television. But how does Kenny handle this basic social friction? He runs to Gavin, whining that Lindsay has minions and is recruiting an army against him.
Kenny is experiencing the ultimate corporate bro reality check. The internet hates him. They absolutely loathe him. Let's consult the Snark squad on Reddit. Toronto Babe 94 said Kenny gives major incel red pill vibes. Allie Philly called him sensitive and thin-skinned. People are pointing out that he probably got pushed out of the corporate world because he cannot handle an ounce of pushback or critical feedback.
Wait, I kind of want to play devil's advocate here. Did Lindsay maybe corner him? She can be incredibly intimidating if you're a guy who isn't used to that level of direct, unblinking female confrontation. Having Lindsay Hubbard interrogate you with the Paloma in her hand might actually feel like an attack.
I reject that premise entirely. You cannot choose to live in New York City, and you certainly cannot choose to sign a contract for a Bravo reality show and then cry because a woman asked you a direct question at a party. You just can't.
That is so true.
If you think a timeline question is an interrogation in a dog pile, you will not survive the MTA subway system. You will not survive a crowded bodega line at 8 a.m. New York will chew you up and spit your bones into the Hudson River. Men like Kenny are terrified of outspoken, direct women like Lindsay because they demand accountability, and these men have spent their lives coasting on the bare minimum.
You are so right. It's the entitlement of expecting everyone to coddle his relationship timeline. He literally complained to Gavin saying, "You gotta have your boys back," just because Gavin dared to defend Lindsay for being a Whirls girl. And then Kenny tries to go toe-to-toe with Lindsay. He tries to clap back by throwing her own past in her face.
Oh, the biggest tactical error of his short, sad reality TV career. He looks at Lindsay, the undisputed queen of Manhattan chaos, and says, "You had a kid with a guy you knew for 2 months. You were projecting your insecurities onto me."
The way Lindsay reacted was cinematic. It deserves an Emmy. She didn't yell. She didn't throw a drink. She just stared him down. Completely unblinking, unbothered, terrifying silence. And then, in her confessional, she just calmly brands him a narcissist and moves on. She said, "I just want to get to know everyone." And honestly, that is how Lindsay gets to know people. She skips the small talk and goes straight for the jugular. It's how she builds intimacy. But Kenny is acting like he's on trial at The Hague for war crimes.
Which leads us perfectly into analyzing the overarching mastermind behavior of Lindsay Hubbard in this episode. Kenny was just collateral damage. Her real target is much closer to home.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the Cold War between Lindsay and Danielle, the other Danielle, obviously.
It is diabolical. I'm actively taking notes on Lindsay's strategy here. It is Sun Tzu's The Art of War playing out in real time in the West Village.
It really is. The mechanics of what Lindsay is doing are brilliant. She is giving Danielle the complete, absolute, impenetrable, silent treatment. She understands the psychology of her former best friend perfectly. She knows that screaming at Danielle would give Danielle something to react to. But ignoring her, pretending she doesn't exist, that is going to drive Danielle to the brink of insanity.
Oh, absolutely.
At Whitney's party, Danielle actually tries to break the ice. She leans in to kiss Lindsay on the cheek, and Lindsay just breezes past her like Danielle is a ghost. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. It is freezing cold.
But she doesn't just ignore her. That would be too simple, too passive. Lindsay engages in active proxy warfare. She wants to drop a massive, messy bomb, but she wants her own hands completely clean for the cameras. So she uses a messenger pigeon. She uses Kyle.
It is a trap, and Kyle, bless his messy heart, walks right into it.
He takes the bait so easily. Lindsay sits down with Kyle, vents to him, casually calls Danielle boy crazy, and loudly questions the timeline of Danielle's new romance with this guy, Eon and Heavy. She plants the seed. And what does Kyle do? He gets a few drinks in him, walks right up to Danielle at the party, and drops the bomb.
We have to analyze Kyle's tactical failure here because it is breathtaking. Kyle walks up to Danielle, a woman who is already emotionally fragile, who is spiraling because her former best friend is treating her like a piece of furniture, and he says, "Lindsay thinks you're a boy-crazy slut." And then, as if this is a magical shield that will protect him from the fallout, he immediately follows it up with, "Don't shoot the messenger."
I am crying. I was screaming at my television, "Don't shoot the messenger," after calling someone a boy-crazy slut to their face. What did he expect her to do? Thank him for the constructive feedback. Danielle gets completely activated. It is a Fukushima-level meltdown. Lindsay orchestrated this flawlessly. She built the bomb, set the timer, handed the detonator to Kyle, and calmly walked away to get a refill.
And Danielle goes absolutely nuclear. She starts fiercely defending this timeline with Eon. But as objective observers of pop culture, we have to look at the facts of this timeline. Because Lindsay wasn't entirely wrong. It is incredibly messy.
It is so messy. Okay, let's lay out the facts.
Yeah.
Eon is this Irish tennis player. Danielle says they knew each other 9 years ago, but they just recently reconnected because he slid back into her DMs. And babes, the reality is that Eon is technically still married to his ex-wife. He is actively going through a divorce. He immediately moves to Danielle's apartment, and now they're having a baby, all within a matter of months.
It is an objectively chaotic timeline. You cannot deny the overlap. Even Whitney, who is dealing with her own box-related issues, brought it up to Kenny, hinting heavily that there was overlap between Danielle's romance with Eoin and the official split from his wife. So Lindsay is not just pulling this accusation out of thin air to be cruel, she is pointing out a glaring structural flaw in Danielle's life.
But Danielle refuses to see it that way. She is acting like Lindsay is just forming a laundry list of fake accusations out of pure jealousy because Danielle is finally in a serious relationship. But wait, the proxy war about the timeline wasn't even the most unhinged part of Lindsay's attack. We have to talk about the Uber rumor.
The Uber rumor is a piece of reality TV history. I have been waiting to dissect this.
I am gleefully bringing this up because the logistics are insane. Lindsay is actively spreading a rumor around the city that Danielle gave Carl a hand job in the back of an Uber.
It is so incredibly specific.
Yeah.
A hand job in the back of an Uber. Let's think about the spatial dynamics of that.
No.
Unless they ordered an Uber black SUV with a privacy partition, you're doing that in a Honda Accord, while a gig economy worker named Greg is just trying to follow his Waze app to Brooklyn.
Shut up. Oh my God.
The sheer audacity of the rumor is what makes it so damaging. It's too specific to instantly dismiss. Danielle is losing her absolute mind over this, and frankly, who wouldn't? How do you even begin to defend yourself against that?
You can't. It just sticks to you. But the ghosts of boyfriends past do not stop there for Danielle. Her past is literally haunting her geographic locations. We have to talk about Robert. Robert the chef.
The jump scare of the century. The ultimate overlap theme.
Yes. Lindsay is hanging out at Rocco's, which is Gavin's bar, just casually chatting, minding her own business, and poof. Like a culinary apparition, Robert Sieber appears. This is Danielle's ex from 3 years ago, the one she had that agonizing, drawn-out, soul-crushing breakup with on Summer House. And it turns out Robert is the new head chef at Rocco's.
We have to talk about the career chaos of this specific decision.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do this? You are a chef in New York City. There are 8 million people. There are over 20,000 restaurants. Why do you take a job at a bar owned by Gavin, a man deeply embedded in your ex-girlfriend's very public Bravo friend group, and then try to claim to the cameras that you don't want to relive the past?
Exactly. It makes zero sense. He either desperately wants the camera time in the Bravo chick, or he is the most oblivious human being on the planet. I lean toward wanting the camera time. But when Lindsay confronts him, he completely folds. He literally flees into the kitchen to avoid the drama. Lindsay asks him whose side he's on in the Cold War, and he just melts into a puddle of anxiety and escapes behind the swinging doors.
He wants the exposure, but he doesn't want the conflict. It's pathetic. And it's wild because Danielle still deeply believes that Robert gaslit her during their breakup and that he had overlap with his new girlfriend who he now works with. Overlap is the defining theme of Danielle's life right now. Overlapping relationships, overlapping friend groups, overlapping trauma.
It is a web of overlap. But while Danielle is dealing with ghost chefs, rumors about Carl, and Irish tennis players, Lindsay is dealing with very real, heavy, adult life stuff. The stakes for Lindsay are so much higher this season.
We have to talk about the custody mediation scene.
Okay.
It grounded the entire episode.
It did. Lindsay really opens up about how emotionally draining and financially ruinous it is dealing with her ex, Turner, over the custody of their 1-year-old daughter, Gemma. She is exhausted. And in classic Lindsay fashion, she masks the pain with dark humor. She said she wants to take the final custody mediation document and keep it in her nightstand drawer next to her never-used condoms.
It is a hilarious yet deeply tragic detail. It highlights exactly where her life is at. She is bogged down by lawyers and childcare, completely detached from her romantic self. But she is finally seeing the light at the end of the legal tunnel. And to distract her from the hurdles of single motherhood, the group decides it is time for an intervention. She needs to date.
Yes. Andrea Denver, the patron saint of hot Italian men and good vibes, steps up to the plate. He decides to set Lindsay up. He introduces her to Frank. And babes, Frank is a hot milkman.
A milk and dairy business owner, technically. He probably owns a massive supply chain. But milkman is so much better for the narrative. We're absolutely calling him the milkman.
And not just any random dairy magnate. He is Kelly Dodd's ex-boyfriend from The Real Housewives of Orange County back in 2018. He is a Bravo-hopping milkman.
The Bravo cinematic universe is truly a closed, impenetrable loop. There are only about 40 eligible, camera-ready men in this entire ecosystem, and the network just rotates them through the different cities like substitute teachers.
It's so true. They just put him on a plane from Orange County to New York and said, action. But I am genuinely celebrating this for Lindsay. She gets so vulnerable and admits she hasn't had sex in 9 months. She said back in her prime, she used to shoot rainbows and butterflies out of her vagina, and she was genuinely worried that part of her life was over forever.
Well, the drought is over because Andrea's matchmaking seems to be highly effective. The chemistry was instant. Lindsay admitted she was completely flustered. She was sweating. And before the date, she literally made Yvonne do an emergency breath check because she had been stress eating meat and cheese all afternoon.
That is the reality of dating in your late 30s in the city. You want to be a seductress, but you also just ate a charcuterie board and need a friend to smell your face. I love it. Okay, babes, we have broken down the plot, the timelines, and the wreckage, but we need to zoom out. We need to analyze the archetypes. It is time to discuss who is driving the narrative, who is acting like the camera was solely focused on them. We need to do our first segment, main character energy.
Let's break down the aesthetics, the confidence delusions, and the pure attention-seeking behavior that defined this week. Because there are two distinct types of main character energy happening right now. The effortless, terrifying kind, and the desperate, performative kind. And we have to start with the master.
Lindsay Hubbard.
Lindsay Hubbard is operating on a different frequency. She is casting Harry Potter-level spells on this cast. It is dark magic, and it is fascinating to watch. She doesn't even have to raise her voice to control a room. She understands that true power is silence.
What exactly?
She ignores her enemies, which deprives them of oxygen and drives them insane. She uses people like Kyle as little carrier pigeons to deliver her insults, keeping her own hands clean. And she drops one-liners that devastate her opponent's egos.
The confidence delusion is off the charts. Think about the scene with Kenny. She stares down this grown man at a party, completely unblinking, while he is having a full-blown emotional meltdown about her asking him basic relationship questions. She doesn't apologize, she doesn't back down, and then she just calmly brands him a narcissist to the audience and walks away. That is pure main character energy. She operates like she is the sun, and the rest of the cast are just tiny, fragile planets burning up in her orbit.
But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have the desperate, try-hard main character energy, the kind that relies on props instead of personality.
Whitney Fransway. I am still screaming about Whitney. She is acting like she is Carrie Bradshaw stepping out onto the cobblestone streets of the West Village for the very first time. She thinks she's the new it girl. But Carrie Bradshaw wore archival Manolos and vintage Christian Dior. Whitney is demanding a second bedroom closet for a literal mountain of highly flammable fast fashion from Shein.
It is the ultimate welcome to New York air delusion. She literally named her own arrival party after a Taylor Swift song. She is living in a romantic comedy inside her own head. But the reality is completely bleak. She is moving into a guy's apartment without an engagement ring. She is hoarding cheap clothing to mask her insecurity, and her boyfriend is getting into screaming matches with the alpha females of the friend group. It's not Sex in the City, Whitney. It's just a warning sign.
It's so sad. She thinks she's filming a fashion montage, but she's actually filming a cautionary tale. Which brings us to our next segment. Who is absolutely not surviving city life? Because we need to have a very serious conversation about survival. If they had to deal with real urban stress, the rent, the dating scene, the noise, the absolute chaos of Manhattan, who is crumbling first?
I will say it plainly and without hesitation, Kenny Martin is a goner. He would not survive a week.
Oh, absolutely. He would be on a train back to the suburbs by Tuesday.
He is constitutionally too fragile for this island. If you think Lindsay Hubbard asking you about your relationship timeline at a house party is an interrogation and a dog pile, your nervous system is too weak for New York. Imagine Kenny trying to negotiate a lease renewal with a notoriously corrupt New York City landlord. He would burst into tears. Imagine him getting bumped by a stranger on a crowded subway platform during rush hour. He would call the police and claim that a minion maliciously attacked him.
He would absolutely call Gavin to come defend him. Like, Gavin, you gotta have your boys back. A guy on the L train looked at me funny. He is not built for the aggressive social politics of this city. But, babes, while Kenny is emotionally weak, I have to bring up my nominee for not surviving city life based purely on logistical delusion, Amanda Batula.
Defend your thesis. Why Amanda?
Because of her apartment hunt. Amanda is actively looking for her own place for this month-long vacation away from her hoarder marriage. And her list of requirements for a New York City apartment proves she has completely lost touch with reality. Let's review the list. She wants a month-to-month lease. Okay, incredibly rare, but theoretically possible if you pay a premium. She wants it fully furnished. Even harder, because corporate housing is sterile and expensive, she wants it to be pet-friendly for the dogs. In a short-term furnished rental, good luck. She wants a full-time doorman building. And the cherry on top, she wants lots of natural light.
The writer of the Vulture recap this week made the absolute best analogy for this absurd list. They said she is looking for the Holy Grail or the lost city of El Dorado for $29,000 a month. She's looking for the fountain of youth in Manhattan real estate. What she is describing simply does not exist.
It is complete, unadulterated delusion. You cannot walk into a broker's office in Manhattan and say, "Hi, I'd like a sun-drenched, month-to-month, fully furnished penthouse that takes multiple dogs, please." That is a fairy tale. She is going to end up in a subterranean basement in Murray Hill, paying 10 grand a month to stare at a brick wall. She is not surviving the brutal reality of this housing market because she doesn't understand how it works.
She has spent a decade letting Kyle handle the logistics, the finances, and the leases. And now she is stepping out on her own and facing the terrifying, soul-crushing reality of brokers' fees and guarantors. She is going to be eaten alive.
Hmm.
And speaking of terrifying decisions that lead to ruin, we need to move to segment 3, delusional career moves only, because they mirror our own spirals perfectly.
Oh, this is where we shine. We need to discuss the most unhinged, delusional moves these people are making. Relationships, jobs, major life shifts. Let's start with the culinary world.
First up on the chopping block, Robert the chef. Let's truly unpack the absolute career chaos of taking a job as the head chef at Rocco's.
It makes zero professional sense. If you want to elevate your career, you don't do this.
Gavin owns the bar. Gavin is deeply embedded in the epicenter of this specific Bravo friend group. Danielle, your traumatized ex-girlfriend, is going to be at this bar. Lindsay, who hates your guts, is going to be at this bar. Why, in a city of 8 million people with over 20,000 restaurants ranging from Michelin-starred fine dining to neighborhood bistros, do you accept a job at the exact coordinates of your past trauma? And then have the nerve to tell the cameras you don't want to relive the past.
Because he does want to relive it. Or he wants the paycheck that comes with the camera time. Or he is just completely, clinically oblivious to social dynamics. Either way, it is a profoundly delusional career move that is going to end with him hiding in the walk-in freezer every weekend. But babes, if we are talking about delusional life moves, the crown has to go to Eoin Heavy.
The Irish tennis player.
Yeah.
The man moving at the speed of light.
Yes. Let's review the catastrophic sequence of his life choices. You are allegedly currently going through a legal divorce from your wife. You decide to reconnect with a woman you casually knew 9 years ago by sliding into her Instagram DMs. You immediately pack your bags and move into her apartment. And you get her pregnant, all in the span of a few months.
It is breathtakingly fast. It is a terrifying speedrun of major, life-altering milestones, all while legally and financially still tied to someone else. The sheer audacity to execute this plan and think it is going to go smoothly while being documented on reality television is baffling.
It honestly relates back to our own spirals. It really puts things in perspective. Like, we sit here exhausted after a long week, looking at our dental drills and thinking, you know what we should do? We should drop our entire established medical careers, take on hundreds of thousands of dollars in new student debt, and become high-powered celebrity gossip lawyers just because we like to argue after 2 palomas.
Exactly. Eoin is just executing his delusional spiral in real time, with real consequences. We're just talking about going to law school in our safe space. He's actually moving into a reality star's apartment and having a baby while actively navigating a divorce.
We are absolute amateurs compared to the cast of In the City. They commit to the chaos.
We really are. We need to step our game up if we want to compete. Which brings us to our final segment, things that only make sense at 2 a.m. in the city. Those chaotic late-night decisions, the texts you shouldn't send, the conversations you shouldn't have that feel totally logical and necessary in the moment but are disastrous the next morning. The undisputed king of this specific brand of chaos tonight is Kyle the Messenger.
Oh my God, yes, the worst decision of the season.
We have to completely roast Kyle for this because it is the epitome of 2 a.m. energy at a crowded party. You have had a few drinks, the music is loud, the lights are low, and suddenly you get a God complex. You think, I am the voice of reason. I am going to solve everyone's deep-seated psychological problems right now. You confidently walk up to Danielle. You deliver a devastating, calculated insult crafted by her mortal enemy, calling her a boy crazy slut. And you genuinely believe that saying, don't shoot the messenger, is going to protect you like a magical, bulletproof shield.
It is the worst idea in the history of communication. It feels like a brilliant idea in the moment and is drunk brain, he's thinking, I'm just being honest. I'm just bridging the gap between two friends. I'm facilitating dialogue. No, Kyle, you are literally lighting a match and tossing it into a fireworks factory. It is disastrous.
But there's another 2 a.m. decision that we have to talk about, a much heavier, more permanent one, biological rushing.
Babes, I felt so emotional reacting to this scene. Danielle gets very vulnerable on camera and admits that she had a life plan. She wanted a baby by the time she was 38. She is turning 37 soon. She felt the window closing. And because of that panic, she decided to just fly headfirst into having a child with a man she just slid back into the DMs of.
It is the ultimate 2 a.m. biological clock panic.
Yeah,
It's that moment you wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, you stare at the ceiling, you do the brutal math on your age, your fertility, and your dating prospects, and you decide that the very next guy who gives you consistent attention is going to be the father of your child.
It's terrifying, but it is so real. I completely disagree with people judging her for the panic because the biological clock does not care about logic. It doesn't care that the guy is technically still married. It doesn't care about red flags. It just screams NOW. And that overwhelming primal anxiety is how you end up making a permanent, lifelong 18-year commitment based on a late-night panic attack.
It is the most permanent 2 a.m. decision you can possibly make.
Truly. Okay, babes, we have unpacked the wreckage, we have spiraled about our own lives, and we are at the end of the line for this week. Thank you so much to the Snark Squad for hanging out with us, drinking palomas, and analyzing the delusion in our safe space. We literally could not do this without you.
We love you, even when your opinions are messy. Especially when your opinions are messy.
But before we officially sign off, we need to hear from you. We have some serious questions that you need to answer in the comments. First of all, could you ever actually survive moving to a big city? Or are you too fragile and sensitive like Kenny? Would you crumble under the pressure of someone asking you a direct question at a party, or would you hold your own?
And I urgently need to know, who do you think is the absolute most delusional cast member right now? Is it Amanda, wandering the streets looking for her unicorn month-to-month sun-drenched $29,000 apartment? Or is it Whitney and her 30 boxes of fast fashion demanding a walk-in closet?
Such a tough choice. They are both so lost. And finally, do you believe Amanda and Kyle will actually ever get back together, or is this one-month vacation going to turn into a permanent, legally binding divorce? Let us know in the comments, slide into our DMs, tell us everything.
But I want to leave you with one final shady thought to mull over until next week.
Ooh, hit us. End the show on a high note.
If Lindsay's 9-month dry spell is finally over, thanks to Andrea Denver and a Bravo-hopping milkman, what happens to the ecosystem of this show when that pent-up rainbows and butterflies energy gets directed at the rest of this cast? Think about it. She was this calculated, this chaotic, and this destructive when she wasn't getting laid and was stressed about custody. Imagine the dark magic spell she is going to cast when she has an afterglow. Strap in, Biggs.
I am screaming. That is terrifying. Remind them to subscribe, keep the palomas flowing, and stay messy. See you next week.